All right, Chris. So you've been in SF for the last week or so, and you're spending a bit of time there. I know you've been going around, looking, seeing the sites, connecting with people. What's your read on what's happening on the ground there, and what's the atmosphere in the headquarters of World Tech?
Yeah, so, as probably most of the audience knows, I was living in Silicon Valley and in San Francisco for about 12 years back in 2007 to 2018, 19-ish. Pre-COVID, loved it here, but ended up coming back to Australia for about 5 years. So I've come back to, reconnect with friends, reconnect with my network, reconnect with some companies. It's been super interesting because, like, if you believe the news, right? Post-COVID, the whole place is cratered. Apocalypse has occurred. There are homeless everywhere. People are dying. Fires falling from the sky. It was certainly pretty bad. Maybe about a year or two ago, I think people all agree that people I've spoken to that there was like a lot of homeless encampments and things were really hollowed out. But as of right now, as of recording, what are we, June 4th, 2024, I think there's been a real concerted effort to find homes, relocate, otherwise clean up the streets. I would say there's probably no more than maybe 150% of the homeless that there was when I was here. So there's like maybe a 50% bump. There's certainly been a kind of a cratering of the retail spaces. There's maybe only 20-30% of retail is populated, especially in like the Westfield on Market Street. It still feels a little bit like a ghost town there. So it's not at its fighting force, but it's definitely not a zombie apocalypse. But I'll tell you what, in terms of the energy, the enthusiasm, the brilliant people doing brilliant things, gathering in coffee clubs and gathering in co-working spaces and in offices and having meetups and having co-working spaces and having events. I mean, it is like 2007, 2008 all over again. Extremely exciting, extremely high energy, extremely frothy. There's some $1.3 trillion apparently on the sidelines ready to come in and get invested. Property prices and rents are going up. Vacancy rates are going down. It is the beginning of a big, big cycle. And I came in 2007, 2008 at the beginning of the last cycle. This is 2007, 2008 again. And so if you're thinking about coming out here, and you really should if you're building a tech startup, it's hard to explain how important and vibrant and incredible being out here is. It just really is, unless you come out here. And so if you're building a tech startup and you're considering coming out here, I would strongly encourage you to follow that instinct and come out here and check it out for yourself and stay for no less than 2 weeks, better for 4 to 6 weeks, and really live it, breathe it, and make some friends and see if it's a place you might want to stay.
Thanks for the report, Chris. Like, the way I'd summarize it is reports of San Francisco's death or of Silicon Valley's death are greatly exaggerated. The physical condition of the city and the state of Silicon Valley have always been somewhat detached. I remember the first time I went to Mountain View, which is one of the main centers in Silicon Valley and where Google is based. I went there as a, young Google employee, and it's this mythical place, Silicon Valley. I thought the streets would be paved with gold, right? That everything would be super high tech and shiny and clean. With all due respect to Mountain View and the lovely people who live there, it's a shithole. It always was. It's boring suburbia, strip mall, office park. The magic of Silicon Valley is the people in it, not the physical environment. And so, yeah, things got worse, especially in San Francisco, less so in the Valley in terms of the physical aspect of it. It's lovely to hear that it's recovering, but I think it's nearly separate and more important that there was, especially during COVID and the whole remote work from anywhere thing, there was a bit of a trend of loudmouth VCs saying that San Francisco's over, it's all Miami now or whatever, and talking about the end of the physical concept of a Silicon Valley. And I think what has borne out is that is absolutely untrue, and Silicon Valley as a physical location is as important and as vibrant as ever.
Yeah, look, I agree with you that it's absolutely about the people. I agree with you that Mountain View, Palo Alto, some parts of the city are really surprising.
Very underwhelming places.
Very underwhelming.
Yeah.
I was like you, expecting gleaming buildings and gleaming streets. Some of it is really very underwhelming. I will say, though, that some of what I've learned here is actually that amongst the top 10 cities in the US, San Francisco apparently is now ranked as the safest. I would say downtown has always been sketchy and continues to be a bit sketchier. But actually the neighborhoods, like I'm in Hayes Valley right now, the Marina, Pacific Heights, they're actually quite beautiful. There's no homeless, none of that. It actually feels like really beautiful, quaint little suburbs. And so that's not too bad. And then I also will push back on this environment thing. I think part of the attractiveness of California, I think, in San Francisco is, even though the city is cold, because it's kind of like an air conditioning system from the bay, in a beautiful sunny day, it's still warm and wonderful. But you drive 20 minutes down the one, you're in California beaches, incredible white sand beaches. You drive maybe an hour and a half north, you're in wine country. You drive 2-3 hours northeast, you are in Tahoe and in the snow. The environment here, as far as the US goes and as far as places go, is diverse. It's beautiful. Kind of everything you would want is within 1, 2, 3 hours of San Francisco.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's a nice place to live, but that's not the point of it.
Well, I think that it's part of the reason, though, that this kind of gold rush swirled around it, though, because a lot of people went like, we're going out there, it's beautiful. And then the Silicon Revolution happened, and the internet, then whatever.
Maybe, but on the other hand, like I said, there was particularly guys like Keith Raboy and other loudmouths on Twitter were like pushing for Miami to be the new Silicon Valley because they were like, Miami's better, it's a better place to live, it's more vibrant, whatever. Now, whether you agree with that or not, I have no opinion. It's completely missing the point, right? People don't decide the mass of Silicon Valley, the history of it. You can't just say, oh, there's a nicer place to live, let's move Silicon Valley over there. That's irrelevant.
Yeah.
It is there because it is there. Whatever the original reasons were are no longer relevant, right? It is there because it is there. And, it sort of reminds me of New York. Like every couple of decades, people are like, oh, New York's dying. New York never dies either, right? And Silicon Valley it's the New York of tech, if you want to think about it that way. New York is like the most vibrant metropolis on earth, and Silicon Valley is that for tech.
Yeah.
And always will be, or until there's a major global shock.
Yep, that's right. Now, we're going to probably release a bonus episode with some of my reporting on the street, just very casual Instagram stories. We'll turn into some audio clips, some interviews with founders over at Shack 15 and other places where some of the energy is going. And we'll dig much deeper into this topic. Boy, it's hard to describe to people who are outside the Valley, including myself. After 5 years, I started becoming a little skeptical about was it really that good? Is it really that necessary? It's hard to describe the density and quality of the network. And I'm only been here 4 or 5 days. The number of serendipitous encounters that I've had, the quality of the conversations, the rooms that I've been in, without trying particularly hard, are difficult to describe and impossible to calculate in terms of their value. And so I just want to encourage everybody listening. We talk about democratizing the principles and mindset of Silicon Valley for the rest of the world, and we do that. And I think we do a good job of that, Yaniv, if I do say so myself. One of those principles is that Silicon Valley is very important. Very, very important. Do not miss that trick. Come here, spend some time here, build a network here, consider moving here, your own circumstances considered. It is ground zero for all of this stuff we talk about on the show. Don't pretend like you can stick your head in the ground and just stay where you live and ignore it. It's important.